Like a monkey that swings from one branch to the next without letting go of the previous branch. Covert narcs love doing that. At least my ex did. Love swinging from one relationship to another while still in a committed relationship. It's fascinating, but it's disturbing to know how they can easily do this. During the monkey branching, you may find that your partner gets very distant. Constantly on the phone, talking or texting wee hours of the night, you'll wake up and surprisingly they're on their phone texting someone, but they'll say that they couldn't sleep, so they were on YouTube. More than likely, they're liking every other picture, if not every picture of someone on social. They also decline intimacy during this time. They'll constantly mention someone in a natural way, something that will be unsuspecting. There was a time where I used to call him out on it, but closer to the last 3 years of our relationship, I saw it and ignored it. I laughed about it. Somehow it was like secretly I wanted him to move on. I was like, swing from the branch already. It also helped to be a little numb when he finally swung off the branch. But as you know, we can't stay numb forever. In the healing journey, it hurts, it's hard, it's long. So make sure you heal properly.
If they monkey branched away from you, if and when they get on that comeback trail, they're going to try to monkey branch back to you. You're going to find yourself in a third-party situation. You are. Because this is their pattern now. They're not going to take time in between, figure themselves out. They're going to want to come back. They're going to want that guarantee so they don't have to sit alone. What do you do with that? I don't know.
And then we hear about the practice of settling. It is disheartening to think that some men settle for a woman who is available and then start pursuing other relationships while they are still in that marriage. This monkey branching, as it is sometimes called, is a betrayal of trust and a complete disregard of their marriage vows. It reveals a selfish desire to fulfill one's needs without any regard for the spouse and children. Often, this kind of behavior comes from an inability to cope with personal emotions or to face solitude.
Women get into committed relationships. Men don't. You will see him living his best life. The only thing is you know nothing about it. You have no idea that he's texting other women, that he's seeing other women. That is the biggest trick a guy can play on you. Oh yeah, Liz, it is a committed relationship. Men usually have secret lives that no one knows nothing about. You know those business trips? Going out with the guys, playing golf, working late. They settle for naive women. Women who believe in love and illusions and fantasy. A good woman who is going to cook for them. A good woman who is going to clean and keep the house. A woman that is going nowhere because she's so faithful to her man. They settle for that. But they go into the world looking for the other one. They settle for a woman that is going to be there for them. When the hot one, when the woman that they really want rejects them, guess who's going to be there for them? You should also be living your life. Yeah, we all want partnership. But don't stop living your life and holding your breath for your man. And the more you're trying to control your partner, thinking that you can have any control at all, they make you believe that you may have any control, but you have zero control. You can be checking his phone. You can be like checking his location. Like you will become so obsessed about what he's doing and you stop living your life. Why don't you take him off the pedestal and put yourself there as a priority? Put yourself there on the pedestal and start worshiping a goddess instead of a male god. Go into the world. Maybe date someone. No one has to know. Like, they do it all the time. And you know, that makes it so unfair that you are home thinking that he's being faithful when he is just living his best life. And you can also do the same, right? You can go for the hot one, for the hot guy with a six-pack, with a really cute car. And and when he breaks your heart, you can run to your partner, you know, the good for nothing. You can go and be like, oh, you know, like, yeah, he doesn't have to know what happened, but, you know, that's living your life, traveling, doing something else besides obsessing. What a menace.
Men, instead of working on themselves, quickly jump into new relationships, looking for someone to fulfill the roles previously filled by their wives. Now, let's look at the core issue, staying together for the kids. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that maintaining a family unit at all costs is best. But the reality is far more nuanced. Children are incredibly perceptive. They notice everything. They absorb the atmosphere of the home, and they internalize the unspoken dynamics, the lack of affection, and the unresolved conflicts. Staying together in a toxic environment is not just about avoiding a divorce. It's about the kind of environment we are creating for our children. They need to witness healthy expressions of love, respect, and commitment to properly develop their sense of self and their relational views. If parents are emotionally distant or contemptuous, children are learning a twisted sense of what marriage and relationships should be. This can affect their own relationships later in life. When parents stay together for the kids, those children may develop profound guilt about their parents' unhappiness. They might believe they are the cause of their parents' suffering, and they might even develop the idea that they are responsible for saving their parents' marriage. Is this the legacy that we want to pass on to our children? Is it loving to expose them to such a distorted and ungodly picture of marriage and family? And it is also important to recognize that some parents may be using the excuse of staying together for the kids to avoid dealing with their own fears and insecurities about leaving a marriage. They may be afraid of being alone, of financial instability, or of the stigma of divorce. We need to understand that our children learn how to navigate relationships by observing us. And sometimes it's the act of leaving that provides the most powerful lesson. If a relationship is consistently toxic and unloving, a child may need to see a parent leave to learn that it is okay to choose oneself and to walk away from an unhealthy situation. In fact, it can be argued that by staying in such a marriage, you are teaching them that it is acceptable to tolerate disrespect, neglect, and unhappiness. As a result, children of toxic parents can end up dating people who remind them of their toxic parents. It becomes the normal they know.
Think about the fact that a lot of people don't realize until it's too late that when you are dating or in a relationship and you have children, how important it is sometimes for them to see you leave. And I know a lot of people are just so busy kind of dealing with that hurt and that pain of what's currently going on that the children's emotions sometimes are an afterthought. But baby, you are literally on display teaching your children how to be treated and how to treat others in romantic relationships. And ladies, y'all can vouch for me, but when you date a man whose mom didn't leave, she was the woman that stayed, that man is so vicious towards women or treat women horribly because of what he witnessed. Instead of the onus being on the person who treated her horribly, he literally turns around and blames the mom just because she stayed. And a lot of times as women, we don't know how to properly navigate relationships or leave because we watched our mothers stay. But I just want to say, I know that that's probably the most difficult decision. I can't tell you what I would do if I was in it, but sometimes I know it's hard, but your kids might need to see you leave, and it's okay to do so.
As a Christian, I believe that marriage is a sacred institution established by God. However, I also acknowledge that because we live in a fallen world, marriages can become broken and toxic. Divorce is not God's ideal plan, but it is sometimes a sad necessity when sin has caused irreparable damage to a marriage. When a marriage becomes a source of consistent pain and harm, and when there is no willingness to restore the relationship.
So insecure guys, avoidantly attached guys in particular, love having options. It is not uncommon for avoidant men to spring into a new relationship or situationship right after their current relationship ends. This is called monkey branching. Monkey branching meaning that you swing from one branch to another branch and you only let go of the previous branch until you have the new branch in hand. And men and women can engage in this practice. But the interesting thing about an avoidant guy is that he'll tell you how hyper independent he is and how he doesn't have to rely on anyone. Yet, if your ex monkey branched to a new relationship right after your relationship with him ended, his behavior is completely contradicting what he told you, because in reality, he despises being alone with his thoughts so much that he's compulsively using someone else to distract himself from his own painful thoughts and feelings, which again is a hallmark of being an avoidant person. It's totally normal for a certain amount of time to rehash certain situations that came up in your past relationship and to imagine what different outcomes might have looked like. But when you spend your time post-breakup hanging out with friends and loved ones and investing in yourself and becoming a better person, you essentially guarantee that on a long enough timeline, you're going to end up with a healthy, compatible partner in the long term. Whereas if your avoidant ex is not seeking help for his deep attachment wounds, and instead he's just distracting himself with superficial relationships, he's just going to perpetuate that cycle for himself, which is sad, but that's not your journey anymore. And all you can do is just wish him the best and concentrate on yourself.
Statistics on remarriage after divorce show that nearly 64% of men tend to remarry anywhere from 1 to 3 years after the divorce. This is a lot faster than most women. And the reason as to why men move on so quickly, is it because they're finding love in another partner, they're looking for love in another partner, or are there other reasons as to why men tend to move on after a divorce and after a breakup so fast? Is a man truly trying to find love, or is he simply trying to find someone who will clean the house, wash his clothes, cook for him, and put out sexually? Somebody who he can come home to and not be alone. While I'm sure that there are men who seek genuine love after a divorce, I know that there are. At the same time, there are men who are not seeking genuine love, and what they're really seeking is a partner to provide domestic labor for them. They're used to this system of coming home and the house being clean, there being food on the table, their laundry being neat, folded, and dried up, and they're used to having that person when they get home. And when they don't have this system going on in their life, now they don't know what to do because the system ain't there. Now, this is not the case for every single man, but this is the case for a lot of men, because a lot of men do not feel valuable or worthy if they don't have a woman by their side. They feel like they need a woman by their side to confirm their masculinity and their identity as a man. Let's be honest, man gets spoiled by having the convenience of a wife in their life. Then all of a sudden, when they go through divorce, that wife is no longer there. So they rush down to another situation to lock somebody down in their life to where it can be a lot more comfortable for them. Look, I have a few uncles who, when my aunts divorced them and left them, they could not stand their own solitude. They could not stand it to be on their own. They had to have someone by their side. And that's because in a lot of cases, some men simply do not know how to deal with their emotions. So they can't sit down to sit in their own skin and just confront their emotions, because they were never taught, nor did they ever have the desire to want to learn how to deal with their emotions. These kind of men that can't be on their own after a divorce or after a breakup can't deal with their emotions. They don't know how, because they've never bothered to learn how to deal with them. So what do? They find somebody else to deal with their emotions instead of learning how to regulate their own emotions on their own. They would rather be with someone, anyone, instead of dealing with their own thoughts, dealing with their own emotions, and having to face that silence of their solitude. That is exactly why a lot of men will rush into a relationship. They'll rush into another marriage because they want to fill these voids that they didn't have to worry about filling while they were in the marriage or in the relationship with that woman. Now that they're not with her anymore, they have to figure out how to fill those voids in, and they don't want to fill them in. So what do? They look for somebody else to fill them in for them.
Next time you're thinking of staying together for the kids, think again. Many people believe that staying together in a toxic relationship will benefit the children. But in the long run, children will perceive these relationships and it will affect them in their own relationships and then later in life. This is going to affect the way they view marriage in the future. It's better for them to see their parents in healthy relationships or not in toxic relationships at all. Staying together for the children will not benefit the children.
Separation might be the most loving decision. God does not call us to endure abuse. He calls us to honor ourselves, our children, and Him by seeking healthy and loving relationships. He would never want us to suffer in silence in a broken marriage. To the women who are watching, let me say this: your worth is not defined by your marriage. You are a child of God, and you are worthy of love, respect, and genuine affection. Do not stay in a relationship where you are disrespected, betrayed, or unappreciated. You are not a glorified house help. You deserve to be with a man who loves you and honors you, and your children need to see you experience that. Be strategic about your choices in relationships. Put yourself first. Do not focus your energy on your partner, and prioritize your own well-being. Understand that if your husband chooses to leave or monkey branch, that is not a reflection of your worth, but rather a reflection of his own moral failings. Do not be afraid to leave an unfaithful and toxic marriage. And to the men who are watching, you must understand that you are called to be spiritual leaders in your families. You are called to love your wives as Christ loved the church and to lay down your lives for them. Settling for a wife out of convenience or for the benefits she can provide is a betrayal of God's design. You need to take accountability for your actions and address your own emotional baggage. You need to learn to cope with your emotions and seek help when necessary. Do not run from your problems and hide behind new relationships. Seek God's guidance, be intentional with your relationships, and be the example of a godly husband and father. What does this mean for us practically? First, it is crucial that we seek God's wisdom and guidance in every decision regarding our relationships. We need to discern what God is calling us to do in our specific situation. Second, we need to prioritize our children's well-being above our own desire to maintain the status quo. We need to provide them with an environment that fosters healthy relationships, love, and respect. Third, we must be willing to confront the difficult truths about our marriages. We must be honest about our struggles, and we must not be afraid to seek help from pastors, counselors, and trusted Christian advisors. The Bible does not give us easy answers, but it does give us principles to live by. Ephesians 5:25 instructs husbands to love their wives as Christ loved the church. This is not a passive affection. It's an active, sacrificial love. 1 Corinthians 13 defines love as patient, kind, and not self-seeking. This is the standard to which we are called, and that includes how we love our spouses and raise our children. Malachi 2:16 tells us that God hates divorce, but that doesn't mean we are called to stay in abusive situations. Sometimes, separation is the path that honors God and our families most. Remember, God is a God of redemption, restoration, and healing. He can bring beauty from ashes. He can help us to create healthy relationships that reflect His love. Ultimately, the key takeaway from this is that staying together for the kids should never be an excuse for tolerating an unhealthy and ungodly relationship. True love is not convenient nor selfish. It is sacrificial and committed to the well-being of one's partner and family. Let us strive to model Christ-centered love in our marriages and in our communities. I encourage you to reflect on what we've discussed today. If you are struggling in your marriage, or you have questions about whether you should stay in your marriage, please seek wise counsel from your pastor or a trusted Christian counselor. Do not hesitate to get the help you need. There is no shame in admitting that you need support. Let us not make the mistake of staying in toxic relationships and passing that on to the next generation. That's all the time we have for today's Black Tea Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Please engage with this topic in the comments below. Like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Remember to share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and we'll see you next time. Tespo.